Now having those two guys being aggressive on the wings, playing their man tough, knowing they have phase behind them for any mistakes, this team could get scary here soon.
All right, so Zion played just about 19 minutes. He's a competitor,
yeah.
and
he wants to play.
He was on fire. He had scored 17 consecutive points. He was rallying the Pelicans back. They had a chance to win tonight, and then this happened. Tell me what you see in the body language here. Is this just a 19-year-old who is disappointed he can't play the final 5:23?
Yeah, it looks like he's saying, "Coach, I want to stay in." He goes, "No, you're done, buddy. I think we've seen enough." But I want to stay, Coach. I've been waiting my whole life, Coach. I want to stay. He's all right, okay, all right. I'm gonna trust you. I'm gonna trust you, man.
Crunch Time is staying with you tonight until Zion's post-game press conference. That is the biggest thing that is yet to happen tonight. We will hear from him live coming up in a matter of moments on NBA TV. I want to remind you, Zion's second scheduled game of the season will also be featured here on Crunch Time. Friday night, the Pelicans welcome the Denver Nuggets. It's on League Pass in a game we will be taking live looks of several times throughout the night. Join us Friday starting at 9 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Crunch Time. The feature of Crunch Time on Friday will be Zion and the Pels taking on the Denver Nuggets. That's Friday night. No back-to-backs here for the Pelicans until March. So we know that Zion won't play back-to-backs. We believe if he's healthy, he will play all of these games upcoming.
And he should be healthy, Jerry. Obviously, I always like to see how a guy feels the next day after, being off so long, coming back from injury. That will let us know how soon we can say 18 minutes, 22 minutes, 24 minutes. Those minutes were increased because, to your point, no back-to-back.
Should also mention, as we await Zion's post-game press conference, we'll go live to Smoothie King Center here in a couple of moments. A third straight win for the San Antonio Spurs tonight. And just briefly mention that the Spurs get 32 points tonight from LaMarcus Aldridge. And with Memphis losing, the Spurs go back into the 8th spot. So if you're looking for that streak to end, not so fast, my friend.
Here we go.
Could be 23 consecutive years in the postseason. Got a long way to go, and a lot of teams bunched up right there. But as of today, the Spurs are back in the 8th spot.
We knew the Spurs would figure out eventually. I think DeMar DeRozan would admit early in the season he didn't get the extension. He might have been in a little funk. I think he's finally worked his way out of that, playing better ball. LaMarcus Aldridge, this being LaMarcus Aldridge, took him a while to get going. I think it was more about DeJounte Murray. I think more about him really playing the kind of basketball, getting the pace going and getting easy buckets. And I think that's gotten better as well.
I think a big key that Greg Popovich would speak to tonight after this game is that they were able to hit 11 threes, which is not an extraordinary number, but the big key was that LaMarcus Aldridge only had one of those threes, and the rest of the team combined to make 10. They've been leaning on LaMarcus at times to hit threes. That's not out of his comfort zone.
Right, but it's, I'm big on how you're taking those threes. Yep. If it's in the flow of the game and you're picking and popping the ball from one side of the floor to the other, I just don't like when guys like LaMarcus Aldridge seek out the threes knowing that in the mid-post or in the post, you get your man in foul trouble.
All right, so back to the other top story again. We hope to be moments away from taking you back live to Smoothie King Center for Zion Williams' post-game press conference. We're sticking with you on an extended version of Crunch Time until we hear from Zion tonight, because that is the biggest thing that has yet to happen tonight. The thing
keeps making shots like that, now you got to rotate to him. You know what that means? Pump fake, put the ball on the floor. Somebody's in trouble now.
So Zion rattled off 17 consecutive Pelican points in the fourth quarter. Not only was it impressive that he was able to do this in his debut, but he also was helping his team dig out of a 15-point hole.
Right. Doing the little things, Jared. Drawing the kicks, going coast to coast, kicking the head to each one more. So I just really believe as each day goes on, he gets his confidence back in his legs, we're going to start seeing amazing things each night.
There was no minutes restriction, right, for Zion. There was no hard number. And I take David Griffin and Alvin Gentry at their word that they were truly leaning on their sports science staff to tell them when it was the right time to take Zion out, when it was the time to put him back in, and when it was time to shut it down for the night. So they did that at just about the 19-minute mark, right after Zion had scored 17 consecutive points. I don't know if you're a big Seinfeld fan, but this was almost like a Costanza moment here. Leave on a high.
Oh, okay. I know that part. I know that part.
Make sure you don't come back with anything that's negative, right? He had scored 17 consecutive points. I know the Twitterverse that I'm reading right now on NBA Twitter some people want Alvin Gentry fired for not putting Zion back in the game.
Let's not overreact on that.
Absolutely.
Not overreact, people. I understand. I'm with you. I want him to play as well. But remember, this is their prize asset, and they want to make sure they get this right. Some people last week, do like they did with Ben Simmons and Blake Griffin and take the whole year off. No! They did the right thing, had the surgeries, back on his feet. He did a great job tonight. Guess what? 2 nights from now, we're going to see him again.
Right. There's conflicting thoughts here, right? Because there's the one thought of, confidence-wise, he leaves with scoring 17 straight points. He feels great going into his next game. The other part of it is, this was a very winnable game.
Very winnable game.
When it may come down to one game being the difference of making the playoffs and missing the playoffs, this may be a game we look back on and say, the Pelicans had a chance to win this one.
No, they'll look at the 11-game losing streak first.
13.
Yeah, 13, they'll look at that first. They're not going to look at that one game, no. they'll look like, we started off so bad, we dug a hole in ourselves.
All right,
Here
we go. Live to Smoothie King Center. Here is Alvin Gentry after Zion's debut.
Nothing ever changes. They won't beat themselves. They hadn't done it in 20 years, so you have to execute and you got to actually beat them, because they're not going to beat themselves. And, I thought we had a good run in there at the, that when we made up the 14 points, but, you just got to keep playing against this team. They just do such a great job. Thought LaMarcus played well, and I thought DeJounte Murray played well, and they just keep coming at you, and they're as good as anybody in the league is executing what they're trying to do, getting the ball to the right people in the right situation. So I was happy. We just had a struggle. They took us out of the rhythm that we've had, over the last 2 or 3 weeks. They took that away from us. They did a lot of switching, which bothered us some, and we just didn't shoot the ball well. Partially them, partially we just didn't shoot it well.
What do you think about the burst from Zion there in the fourth quarter, especially considering the way you started?
Like I said, it was going to be a learning experience either way. If he played well, if he didn't play well, I think the big thing is that. He was much more aggressive during that situation. And we had talked at halftime about, I thought he was just deferring way too much. And I wanted him to be aggressive, and I knew that he would make some mistakes. But, I think what you saw there is a taste of what, once we really get settled in and he gets settled in, I think you can see that there's a lot of things that we can do with him, and there's a lot of potential there, so it was good to see him do that. But I just think there's a really, really high ceiling, that he can reach, that he can reach it. So we'll just continue on, and we'll continue to practice. And anybody have any questions, I'll answer them. And no, he couldn't go back in the game. Okay, so that don't go there. All right.
Just cut from a minute.
Just because the medical people said that was it. So.
Well, what was just the conversation like with them when you had it rolling and you just had to let him know, like, hey, that's it?
He wasn't happy about it. I don't think anybody would be happy about it if you were playing at the level that he was playing at, and all of a sudden you had to come out of the game. I ain't the brightest coach in the world, but I wasn't going to take him out in those situations unless I was told to. So.
How hard is that for you as a coach to kind of have to balance those two, his future versus taking players?
Well, I think you got to be smart about it. I mean, I'm pretty sure Sean wouldn't take Drew Brees out in that situation. Okay, but I think we've got to be smart about it. I think we understand that we have to look long term and not, one game, short term, put him out there and play him extended minutes, So we were not going to do that in any situation. So I think he made his point, and I think he'll continue to get better, but we can't sacrifice his whole future for one short-term thing.
As a fan of basketball, just what was it like, though, to watch that stretch of him just and the crowd and everything around it just kind of exploding at one time?
Well, I think you'll see that. I think you'll see that in him some, and like I said, it's his first NBA game. But I think the second time he went out there, actually the third time he went out there, excuse me, I just thought that he was much more comfortable, and I thought he was much more aggressive. He found out that everybody makes mistakes, and he just continued to play through them. And, I think for him it's just a relief to have one game under his belt, and now, all of this goes away. The first game. And now I think he can just play and get himself in a situation where he can continue to learn and continue to grow.
Do you think he looks healthy? Do you think he looked natural?
Looked pretty natural to me, and he said he felt great. So, all of those things are positive, as I said. I think the test will be in the morning, when he comes in, how will he feel? And, there's no reason for me not to believe that he'll be fine,
Coach, we had gotten used to Brandon being the closer over the last few weeks. It seemed like he kind of struggled to get off early and then late as well. Was it the defense that presented problems for him tonight?
No, I thought he got, that's the one thing we talked about. I thought he got to where he wanted to get to. I thought he got good shots. It was one of those nights where, they just weren't going in. I didn't think that, it was bad shots that he took, not necessarily, and I didn't think that they were locked in defensively. I just thought that he got to his spots, and they just weren't going in tonight.
Yeah, what have the medical people told you as far as how long this minutes restriction plan will be?
Well, we don't have, we don't say on January 29th everything will be lifted. It'll be a game-by-game situation, and I think, when they evaluate him the next day, that'll have a lot to do with where we go from there.
Was it surprising at all to see Pop throw double teams at him almost immediately to start the game? And what does that kind of say about the type of player he is, that he gets that attention game one?
Was I surprised? Nope. I work for Pop, so yeah. I just think that they didn't want to let him get going and didn't want him to, to just feel relaxed. So, they ran guys at him, and, I think he handled it great, like I said, he had a couple of plays that where he lost the ball, that he's not going to lose the ball on those particular plays. So that didn't bother me at all. I like the aggressiveness he played with during that stretch, and I think he's just going to get better and better in those situations. And I like the fact that, passing the basketball, he can find guys, And what we really want to see him do more of now is that we want to see him, when he rebounds the ball, push it in the break and be, the facilitator in those situations also. But, you're going to not get all of that in the first night he plays, but, we have something that we can look at and we can grow from now.
Alvin, you've been in the league a long time. You've seen a lot of players. Over here, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How do you explain what we just saw, a guy that kind of is just going through the first three quarters and then can just erupt like that in the moment with all the expectations that are on his shoulders?
Well, we spent a lot of time talking about, listen, at the end of the day, it's game 43 or 45 or whatever it is. Game 45 for us, that's all it is, really. We can talk about anything, but it's the 45th regular season game we play, and we wanted to approach it that way, and we wanted him to approach it that way, that, we're playing a very good San Antonio team, regardless of what their record is, that won't beat themselves, and that it would be good to play against a team like this because, they're going to make you execute and they're going to make you beat them. And so that's the way he went into the game. As I said, I think at the start of the game, he was deferring, which is kind of natural. And our guys was kind of deferring back to him. So we really never got into any kind of flow or rhythm. But, all of that will come, and I think we'll be fine.
You mentioned the flow and the rhythm. Do you think it'll be him finding the flow and the rhythm of what you all have been able to sustain the last few weeks, or will it be the rest the team kind of adjusting to him?
No, I think it'll be a little bit both ways, and I'm not trying to walk the fence, but, you know, there are some things that he can do that we'll have to add to our offense. And, you know, there's also some things that he'll adjust to. So he's a really bright basketball player and a good kid, and he's all about the team. So I don't see it being a problem at all of us figuring out as coaches, you know, what to do with him and how to integrate him into what we're doing, as well as adding some things that will benefit us that he can do. So I thought it was, you know, it's a night that, you know, he's shown that he's got explosiveness in some of the things that he can do, and, you know, we'll go on from there.
Alvin, what was Zion like at halftime, and what was sort of his demeanor at halftime?
As it always is, really. I mean, it wasn't like he was down or anything like that. The only thing we did is that he and I talked a little bit before he went back out there, and I told him that, you know, I want him to be more aggressive, and I want him to enjoy the moment. You know, don't take this lightly. I mean, it's a great moment for you, and it's what you've worked for your whole life, is to be able to walk out and play in an NBA game. So enjoy that moment, not to worry about it, and, you know, we're going to be fine as a team, and he's going to be fine as a player. All right, thanks, guys.
All right, that is Alvin Gentry after the Pelicans' loss. We are standing by to take you back live to Smoothie King Center. As soon as Zion Williamson takes the podium, you will hear his words after his first NBA game. If you're just joining us, he's 3D. I'm Jared Greenberg. Zion Williamson had a relatively slow start, but that kind of was to be expected. I think some people wanted him to jump through the roof to begin the game. Had just 5 points and 5 turnovers entering the fourth quarter, but then in the final quarter, he erupted for 17 consecutive Pelican points in a span of just over 3 minutes of game time. Finished with 22 points on the night.
Well, like Coach Gentry said, deferring early on is pretty impressive. And like Coach said, it lets you know how smart he is as a basketball player, not coming out trying to do too much. He talked about it like we spoke on, those couple turnovers. They're not going to happen as you get to playing more basketball, rusty ball handling. That stuff happens because you haven't played since October 13th. Like Coach Gentry said, he has to add other plays now because now this guy does something different that nobody else does on your team. That's going to get better. So both the team and Zion will adjust as game by game, a little bit of practice. Like you said, no back-to-backs. It's maybe 4 or 5 games from now, we'll be saying he's ready to go.
Right, no back-to-backs until the month of March for the Pelicans, which is a great sign if you're trying to see Zion in person or if you're trying to see him right here on NBA TV. Again, we'll go back out live to Smoothie King Center to hear from Zion in a couple of moments as soon as he takes the podium. 3D, Alvin Gentry is one of the funniest and coolest coaches in the NBA.
Really is.
He proactively addressed the situation at his press conference that we just watched about taking Zion out. He scores 17 consecutive points in a span of about 3 minutes of game time, about 5.5 minutes to go in the game, and Zion was shut down for the night. Clearly, Zion was not happy with it. It was the medical